Game time!
So last night, the Cavs saw their 12-game win streak come to an end to the hands of the Indiana Pacers. They shot poorly. That's fine. But before we dive into some specifics, I wanted to show you some of the reactions we got to the loss on Twitter. Once the game ended, I tweeted this out. Steve, take tag word full. Just a bad game. It happens in basketball. Wouldn't look too much into it. Season lows in field goal percentage and three-point percentage. Hard to beat anyone with 37-27 shooting splits. Indy played well. Give them credit. Thought their full-court pressure disrupted Cleveland's offensive rhythm. Ready for the rematch on Tuesday.
And by the way, the Pacers didn't shoot particularly well from three either.
Not great, but that's not the point
right now. I got you. But go ahead.
The next tweets I'm going to show you guys are all responses to that tweet. Mm-hmm. Nothing great. Like, I'm not looking too much into it. These are all responses to that tweet. And let's take the first one. Comes from Day, Stefanski, and Garland to Timbuktu. Pacers and Hawks expose the Cavs for the frauds they are. Next.
Frauds.
This is from 94 Feet of Cavs. Merrill cannot play for this team again.
I hope
Next,
there's sarcasm in here, but I can't
None
tell.
of this is
No, they're being
sarcastic.
serious.
Austin. Season's
That's
cooked.
sarcasm.
That can't be true.
Next one.
That can't be.
Ball out. Trade Spider Mitchell.
Okay,
He
now
also
that
tweeted
is
at me.
sarcasm.
Some of these are sarcastic.
That's
He
sarcastic.
also tweeted at me 3 or 4 times.
See, here's the problem.
saying that
Sarcasm
Mitchell
doesn't
is-
translate.
I
It's
know.
very difficult to tell.
We need a sarcasm font on Twitter.
And those are the last
That's a
ones.
great
They
idea.
also responded to other
he has
tweets
those
with
sometimes.
similar sentiments. I think there were some people, not all, some people that are legitimately concerned that last night's loss to Indiana is some sort of blueprint or some sort of expose on why the Cavs' 33-4 start was fraudulent. And I don't see it that way, so I'm curious if any of you guys are taking a bigger look into what went wrong last night and if that's replicable by other teams moving forward. Or was it simply a bad shooting night, which happens all the time in basketball?
That's what I chalk it up to.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anybody that's serious in their. I mean, you could be critical in the micro, I guess, of the one specific game, but if
To
you're
discount the whole season?
yeah, this just doesn't make. It's stupid. I think anybody getting worked up about it is should be disregarded, or they're being sarcastic. It just doesn't make any sense. It was a terrible game. They played like crap, especially in the second half. What else can you do?
Even the best NBA teams have 15 games a year where they play like that.
And the Cavs have had like 2.
They miss
3.
they miss shots. They turn the ball over. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the one thing that I mentioned it on Friday that I think that they're starting to realize is you are going to get teams' best shots.
Yeah.
You saw it with Toronto. You saw it with the Pacers. You're going to see it on this is a big road trip they got coming up: Indiana, OKC, and Minnesota. So, and that is not anything that they had to experience early in the season.
Right.
So that's something that's happening in
When they
real
were
time.
15-0, I mean, I think
I
teams
still don't
were
think.
gunning for it. But now, I think
another level.
You know, I know the Bucks won the in-season tournament, but right now, if you were to ask most of the NBA teams, I think they think the crown is on the Cavs' head for this
The
regular
target
season.
is. The crown is not. The target is.
Yeah.
Well, the target goes with the crown, and I think it happens. Now, I will be watching this next game with Indiana very closely. Is there some sort of loophole that they've found? Is there a cheat code? The Hawks seem to find something out.
Those teams are not built the same way. Now, if you're looking for the demise or what their flaw is, the flaw to me is still the Hawks and the Celtics and the Thunder. Now, they've beaten the Celtics and the Thunder, but it's those long athletic teams on the wing that can switch everything. That's what would give the Cavs trouble more than the Pacers. Just play fast. They score a lot of points. They're not a bad team. They went to conference finals last year.
They're also right now on a 6-game win streak.
Yeah.
They're playing very, very well right now.
I think Kenny Atkinson is smiling ear to ear. He loves this. He loved it. See, this is going to be a great opportunity for him to go in and have some great coaching to this. He's going to tell them, hey, listen, guys, just like Jason said, you're going to get everybody's best shot.
Yeah.
So there are points in times where you watch that game, Indiana had more energy. And you're going to have more energy when you're hitting shots. That's just what it lends itself. You're going to have more juice when you're hitting shots. Now, they didn't hit that many shots. They hit more than the Cavs did. I also think that there are some different things you could take away from this. What I saw as I was watching the game, there were times where we talked about the rotations. And Kenny has hit all the right buttons. Every time he throws somebody on the floor, it's worked. Every time he decided to leave somebody on the floor, it's worked. Every time he brought another guy off the bench, and whether it be Merrill or Strus or Dean Wade, whatever, it's been working. This game, I looked at it, and there was times where George Niang wasn't hitting shots. Max Strus got the ball taken from him like 5-6 times in a row, it seemed like. And he was very patient with him. He still staggered Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen with two bigs, two guards. And there was times where if this was a real game in the playoffs, I think he would have been like, let's come back with the starters real quick. I thought he could have came back with a little quicker in this game, but that's just something he's working through. So that's why he's excited that they lose a game like this, so he can see in real time, like, okay, if this was a playoff game, would I come back with my guys, or do I trust my bench guys who've been helping me all year? So I think that's something. You never get better when you win. You get better when you take these L's.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously is going to coach a little differently in the playoffs, but I'm never going to be critical of his player usage because he's done such a great job.
Yeah.
The one night it doesn't work, then, if you want to argue he kept bench players too long, I would say, we're only saying he kept them in too long because they didn't hit shots this one time. They've earned his patience.
Mike,
all
you talked
those guys.
about
in the
rotation
post-game press
afterwards.
conference yesterday, Ethan Sands of Cleveland.com asked him, hey, you stuck with Strus? And he said, I trust Max.
Of course.
He didn't play well tonight, but I know the player he is. I know the work he's put in. I trusted him to kind of shoot himself out of it, and it didn't happen last night, but as a team, it was their second lowest field goal percentage of the season and their lowest three-point percentage of the season. The one thing I did want to mention...
And their first game
What
under
do you
100
chalk that
points.
up to? Just a
missed
bad
shots.
shooting
They
night, or was
missed
it-
a bunch
How
of
much
open
of that
shots.
was defense?
I thought what Indiana did in the second half when Halliburton went out, so Halliburton did not play the second half, they put in Ben Shepherd and they started full-court pressing. And they didn't necessarily get a ton of turnovers off it like you would do in a high school game where you're pressing to turn guys over. They were essentially just making the Cavs slow down, get out of their rhythm.
Yeah.
And on a night where they just didn't make shots and they were a little behind the chain just because of the full-court press, I thought it just made their offense a lot more clunky than they have been in the
So
past.
maybe that's the answer. Press these guys.
Teams aren't going to press.
Teams are going to do it, but you don't
No, it
press.
takes too much energy, but
Yeah.
the playoffs, you can do that.
I mean, they just missed open shots. They had a lot of good looks last
Especially in the fourth quarter when Indiana built up that lead in the fourth quarter, it felt like every shot the Cavs had was a good shot. They just missed.
They had a lot of good looks.
Yeah.
They had
And
a lot
Indiana
of good looks.
also
They-
made a couple shots
they-
at the end of the shot clock.
They
that-
banked a three.
Yeah. That Nembhard
Well,
one
that
was the
kind of
perfect
just sealed.
example
That
of
was it.
Yeah,
That put them up like 12 or 13.
I was like,
whatever it was.
I mean, in Indiana. By the way, Indiana is a
Give
team.
them credit.
They went to the finals last year, Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good team. They played a nice series in the Eastern Conference Finals. I will say this though, McNuggets. Sometimes you got to reset a little bit, and to reset in the NBA might be like, hey, let me show you that we're not unbeatable, and to get back and kind of reset the mark.
To that point, G, the one thing I did take away from last night, and this is a bigger picture outlook, and we got some graphics here. In the third quarter, the Cavs have not been great this season. Over the last 4 games, they've allowed 30 points in the third quarter to Charlotte, 43 in the third quarter to OKC, 42 to Toronto, and then 37 last night
That's
to
a
Indiana.
lot.
And on the right hand, you can see the point differential in the quarter. So they lost all 4 of those quarters. If you go to the next graphic, Steve, this is their defensive rating by quarter this season. They're a top 10 defense in the first, second, and fourth quarters. They're a bottom 10 defense in the third quarter. So I asked Kenny about that. I said, Kenny, can you put your finger on why there may be a little drop-off in terms of your defensive efficiency in the third quarter coming out of the halftime break? And here was his answer to that question. Finger on maybe why?
No, because we've talked about it with the group. Like, I don't know. We got to get better halftime speeches, I think, So, what we're up at halftime, 14? Was 13? And it's like this team, like, and God, please, we're our standards got to be higher. Like, I think we tend to relax when we get these leads, and this, how the NBA is now. It's like snap of the finger, all of a sudden, it's a tie score. So I just think there's a little bit complacency when we get a lead, but that's alarming. I think we've given up 37 points or more the last 3 games in the third quarter. So it's like, we'll look at it, we'll dive deeper into it, but it seems like that's a mental kind of not ready when you come out of the locker room and a relaxed thing.
Talking about coaching points, there you go. There's your
I
coach.
like how, I mean, do we have another coach in town?
Hey, Kevin, that's how you call your team out without calling your team
A
out.
very good question was asked, a question that undeniably there is a trend. There's no question, and he knows that.
Yeah.
And he recognized that, and he couldn't have been more human and honest in his answer. I got to give better halftime speeches. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. Maybe we're complacent. That is so damn refreshing.
He could have just said like, it's probably just a coincidence. It's whatever, some nonsense like that if he wanted. And
Love it. I love it. And you would not get that answer, and you would not get that reaction. And now so it's kind of hard when you winning all these games. You beating teams, and you are giving up them 30s and 40s, but you're still winning. It kind of goes in one ear and out the other. Whatever.
Yeah.
Sure,
Dad, whatever.
winning hides the warts.
But when you get them consequences, he can now go in and say, "Listen, I told you." This was going to come back, and look, 3 games, we won some close ones, but you're going to lose some close ones like that if you continue to let people put these points up. So that's why I love it, because I know just by what he's saying there, he's going to coach the hell out of it. He's going to coach that, and this is going to be a good teaching point for this team. And by the way, when you want to be the big dogs, and when you watch some of those Warrior teams, and you watch the Bulls teams and some of the really, truly great all-time win record teams in the league, what happens is you see that killer instinct. I remember watching the Warriors back in the day. The Warriors would almost look like they would smell blood in the water. It would be like you would be in the game, you'd be plugging along, and all of a sudden they go 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 32, and then by that you done lost, and you're like, where did the game go? And so when you are 13 and a half, you want to start to develop that killer instinct to say, hey, the Pacers was on the road. It's the middle of January. If we go up and put another quick 6 buckets, get a stop here, these guys will quit, and they'll move on to the next thing. So hopefully we'll see what it is. They get another opportunity against on Thursday. I'll be anxious to see if they ratcheted up the intensity on the defensive end, not just the offense.
both games this week on TNT. Tuesday against the Pacers, Thursday against the Thunder. Both on the road. You mentioned Minnesota.
I'm concerned about this little stretch.
They've got 2 Houston games coming up, and then the first
teams.
2 games in February are against Boston
Well,
and Dallas.
of their 16 remaining games before the All-Star break, 12 are against teams above 500.
Yeah, I like it.
It's a tough run.
I like that. I want them playing good
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
Okay, one last thing from this game, then we'll move on. Sorry, I was talking to Steve real quick. But when you start the season 33-4, and then you have a stinker like you had last night, and it's a stinker. Like I said, I'm not looking anything into it, just a bad game. Does it make you appreciate the 33-4 start even more, knowing that games like last night happen all the time across the NBA? The Thunder, after losing to the Cavs, went and beat the brakes off the Knicks 2 nights later, and the Knicks had one of those games where they couldn't buy a shot. Does what happened last night kind of just make you appreciate the first 2.5 months of the season a little more, knowing it's the first time all year they've really had a game that you can look at and say they truly just played like crap?
I don't know if I appreciate it more.
No.
I'm not sure. I mean, I really appreciated the 32 and 33-4 start, whatever the hell it was. I appreciated the heck out of that. I know I liked it a lot more than last night. And I will admit, I don't know about you guys, but I will admit that they're like, it lets a little bit of daylight in to the argument that, you know, we've all said they're shooting over their skis. They're not, you know, I think we all agree that they can't continue shooting at this clip. I don't know. I mean, there's a little piece of me that is concerned because these next 3 in particular, but you mentioned all the way up to the All-Star break. You know, what you don't want to do is go 6-6.
Yeah.
You don't want to exhibit mediocrity. You still want to exhibit dominance and superiority, like 9-3.
Get on another run.
Even 8-4.
Yeah, get on another little
but
run.
When you
can't
lose
expect
4 in
them
the
to win
first
every
30
game,
seconds. No,
right?
they're not
Like,
going to.
yeah.
But you also don't want them to lose 4 in 8 when they've lost 4 in 37.
So Jason, for me, it's like kind of what Jay said. It's like, okay, I've been kind of waiting for the shooting to tail off a little bit because traditionally, if you look at these guys as individual shooters, a lot of them are shooting, especially like guys like Okoro, LeVert, even Max Strus. Like Max Strus, on paper, looks like a good 3-point shooter, but he's streaky as well. My thing is, when shots aren't falling, what is their go-to? Like, if shots ain't falling, threes ain't falling, what's our next bread and butter to say, okay, what we doing? How we gonna get this ball in the basket?
You got to get stops. You got to get stops on the defensive end.
So
But offensively, I mean, you can get Mitchell to the rack, you can get Garland to the rack, you can go inside with your bigs.
But the way the game is, if the threes aren't falling,
No.
they're going to keep shooting until they fall,
Yeah,
or they're
you're
going to lose the
right.
game. Like, that's just today's game.
You have to.
So I like the fact that you're talking about it's the defensive energy, because that's where you can, if you can stop other
create
guys.
turnovers, create easy looks for yourselves, get some easy baskets, that's, to me at least, I don't know if Mike disagrees, but if you can't get shots to fall, if your three-pointers aren't falling, create some turnovers on the defensive end, get some runouts, get some easy looks, and try and catch a little bit of rhythm. But ultimately, like we were watching, I started at the arena last night, and then I left, and I came home. And I was watching the game with my sons, and my oldest was like, "Why are they still shooting threes?" I'm like, "Have you seen an NBA game in the last 10 years?
That's what
This
they
is
do.
what you do.
Yeah.
You can miss 7 in a row. That next one is going up. Like
Yeah.
they're just going to keep shooting them until
And
they
it just
fall."
when the game is the way it is, when you're shooting poorly, it's ugly.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
When you're shooting a million threes and you don't hit them,
And I
it's
do thi-
ugly, and we're not used to it with the Cavs this year.
yeah. I think two things can be true. I think there is going to be some regression to the mean a little bit with the shooting, but I also think this is a very good shooting team. And now I don't think that this is the reincarnation of Klay, Steph, and Kevin Durant. Like that's not what this is. But they do a really good job of creating open looks. And with the ball movement, with the offense that they're running, they do a really nice job of getting easy looks for one another. And more times than not, you like your chances on that. Now you're going to have nights like this where it doesn't matter how open you are, it is not going to go in. And G said it a bunch the last few days, and we've heard it for years. It's a make or miss league.
Yeah.
And you can have the best look in the world and it doesn't go in, and all you can do is shrug your shoulders and say, "I like the process that led to that. We didn't get the result we wanted, but I would do the same thing all over again." And if you miss those shots and you lose that game, you live with it, because like I said, the best teams in the league have nights like this at least 15 nights a year.
And it's hard.
Real quick before you go, Kenny said in his postgame last night that they tracked the shot efficiency rating. So how do they like the quality of their looks? They want to be in the 90 to 94 percentile. They were in the 85 to 90. So a little below where they like to be,
That's
but
interesting.
it was still in the higher echelon of where they've been. They just missed shots last night. What were you saying?
Well, and I think overall, even more than physical, it's just something to be said for a team that was not expecting to be thrust atop the standings.
Yeah.
And a lot of, like, for the last week or so, we just talked about how the NBA is just so excited about the fact that you look at the numbers from the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cavs, and they're like, "Hey, look how great this game was. Look at the ratings. Look at, like, this is the kind of the two teams that have been pegged to save the NBA because of the way that they play basketball." And it's a little bit of it's an emotional drain that comes with that, man. You just, every game you're gonna get somebody's best punch. Every game you're like, dang. I even found myself watching it as Indiana Pacers hitting shots. I'm like, come on, it's the Pacers though. And in reality, these teams play in the league too. So you ain't gonna win every game. I think they'll bounce back.